2414 is a podcast about finding hope and common ground through casual conversation. Like the friends on the road in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 24, verse 14, we want to walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. Thanks for walking with us.
Welcome to 2414. Yes. My name is Shane Welter.
Hi, Shane.
I'm joined by Dan. Hey. 2414. Thank you for listening, joining us. This is a podcast about conversation, about just listening when needed, speaking your heart when needed, and just talking about life.
Yeah, taking time out. I would even say scheduling time for a friend and to have a conversation.
Scheduling, yeah. Honestly, yeah. I look forward to these like each week.
Yeah.
Even though like we kind of figure it out along the way. Like that's I'm gonna be honest.
What do you mean
like,
figured out? Like our conversation?
Our conversation.
Yeah, we don't have a map. We don't know where we're gonna go.
It's not a script.
No.
We're like, hey, let's just talk about this. And we're kind of, I think we're at the beginnings of a series of Sabbath rest, about resting, about finding rest, finding peace in a world that is ever growing more and more consuming of our time and our attention. How do you find rest? Is there something we should be doing? Is there what we're doing bad? Spoiler alert, yeah. But
a lot, probably.
Probably.
And it might not be the world's fault.
Yeah. Oh,
that's the scary truth and all that.
That's deep.
It's easy to blame, but
it is, and that's So we're going to dive into that. We had a episode before this that was kind of an introduction of our initial thoughts about rest. What do we want from Sabbath? What does Sabbath maybe mean to us? So you can check that out. But here at 2414, in the spirit of being and spirit of kind of, I don't know, walking as John Mark Comer, the author of The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, would say, like, we're going to kind of be in the moment. And one of the ways we do that in 2414 is sharing highs and lows and just how are you doing, basically. But highs and lows are a good, good question for that.
Which is, Shane and I kind of looked at each other right before we hit record, and we're like, should we do that? Do we have time? And I was like, it would be really like dishonest of us not to, because like that, it's really slow and inefficient to check in with each other and to share. And maybe a lot of the best of life is slow and inefficient, and it's not just racing through to get to the, checking the thing off the list. So kind of as an act of rebellion against both of our calendars and the busyness, we're going to slow down and check in with another person and play a little game and laugh, because that matters like now as much as ever.
Yeah. Well, it's real. It matters. Like it, as silly as it might sound, it matters to just,
it's good for my soul.
Quality time. So, what else are we going to do? Highs and lows of the past year, decade, month, week, minute.
Oh, I've lived a lot of life this week. I'll
say before, at the time of this recording, Pastor Dan has ran 100 miles, or we'll get to that. There will be an episode on that. But at the time of this episode, we haven't recorded that yet.
Yeah, so later this week, we're hopefully going to record a bonus episode about my crazy long run. I'll share a little bit of high and low from that. Not related to that. My low right now is I'm not sure how to put it into words, which is strange for me because words are what I use a lot. But I would say I feel really low on resiliency, meaning like my kind of bounce backness. Like I feel like I'm running on fumes. So I notice it when I catch myself in some like disproportionate response. So like somebody was frustrating or unhelpful or unkind, but like my response internally or maybe even externally is like, whoa, that was uncalled for. Like, okay, what they said or did wasn't nice, but like how I responded, that was not good either.
And your initial feeling, gut reactions are.
And so that I feel really, I feel low on resiliency. Is how I'd say that. That's my low.
Yeah.
High, I had so much fun running last weekend.
Really? You do say fun at the end of it.
It's days away at this point. It was no fun. So I was out there for about 20 hours, and I'd say the first 14 hours were a lot of fun. Hours 15 and 16 were less fun. 17 and 18 were no fun.
Oh my God.
And 20
Goodness.
was just like the worst. But looking back on it, 14 out of the 20 were really great. So most of the day was awesome. So getting to run, getting to be in nature, seeing friends, having people come alongside me, having people literally like pick me up off the ground in my like broken state. And can I share one more high related to that?
Yeah.
We'll dig into it.
There will be a deep
later.
dive at the before or after this
but just to celebrate, I had a friend, his name is Daryl, show up for me in such incredible ways, and I've thought so much about friendship since then. And my takeaway is something along the lines of like, if you want somebody to show up for you, like you need somebody to show up with you for a long time first. Like we showed up with each other for years, for hours on end, in all kinds of weather. And and our friendship grew in the boring, like in the normal mundane, just showing up like alongside of each other, not transactional, not putting things in the bank for something later. But like if we hadn't done those hours of kind of boring time together, like showing up with each other, I wouldn't have been in a spot for him to show up for me in a way that like was just life-giving. So just kind of made me think of, friendship, most of it's boring and mundane and scheduled and routine. And yet, like, if you want to have that person who's got your back, or if you want to be that person who's got somebody's back, you might have a lot of boring time to put in first. So it's kind of a high for me just to see what a friendship looks like over years and how beautiful it can be.
That's really awesome.
So anyway, what about you, Shane? Lows, highs, and it can be Cheetos for lunch. You don't have to do anything all emotional.
Oh yeah. Well, I would say I think a low from the past few days, weeks. Lauren and I were in California. That's not the low. That'll be part of the high. But the low was our flight out of Santa Ana kept getting delayed. It's like, all right, well, we'll make it back by night, and this is like Saturday. Last Saturday, and this just kept getting delayed. I'm like, okay, well, it'll just be like a long night or like a short night or whatever. And then that flight ended up just getting canceled. Like, oh my goodness. And this was a Sunday where Lauren and I were leading a lot, like kind of both services. It's like, all right, this is not the ideal like situation. So we were, very frantically calling airlines, seeing what we could do, and they're like, you could fly out of this airport that's like 2 hours away, or you could fly out of LAX. Like, okay, I think LAX is probably our best option.
That's still like an hour away, right?
Yeah, still about an hour away. So like fly out of there. We would leave in the night, so we'd have to leave like now, and so like book the flight. We're kind of moving and calling to figure it out, confirm, and get the seats and everything. So we like are left a little frantically, and then once we got to the airport, LAX, it's a zoo, it's a jungle. Nobody likes it. It's not a great airport, but nevertheless, like we were there, like we got through, and then that flight got delayed. So we got in even later, and just by the time we got in the SeaTac, and then had to just Ubered home at that point, and like it's just like it was like it already was Sunday, so it's just take a quick nap onto the next thing for Sunday to lead worship, and so it was just a very hectic kind of good chunk of hours through that. High was Lauren and I got to go to a songwriter retreat in California called the Songwriter Initiative, hosted at Concordia Irvine, and from it we wrote some songs, and in the spirit of Sabbath rest, one of the co-writes got to write in. We got to write a song on like resting, stillness.
And when you say we, is that like two of you? Is it 40 of you? What does it look like when you're working on a song?
Yeah, so I think there's about 40-ish, maybe, like total.
For the whole thing?
For the whole thing.
Okay.
It's like a 3-day retreat, and they break you off in a group, so you write in either a group of 3 or a group of 4, and there's not really a prompt. It's just write a song that you need, want, your church might need, and like and there's 3 total sessions, and out of it, between all the groups, there's like 45 songs that come out of this. And my last group, like, I don't know, it's like, it kind of just came up, like, it just kind of happened. Yeah, there's always like that last party in the room of like the Spirit and how it leads and how it kind of guides your hearts and souls in it. And we wrote a song, and at some point this summer, I definitely want to implement that song.
Cool. Can't wait to hear it.
So it was just, the song alone was really nice, and just the fact like Lauren and I can do that together, it's just really, it was
Did
really
you guys
enjoyable.
stay like as a couple the entire time, or did you break up in different songwriting groups?
So there are like 2 like groups that they like split everyone up, so you only get to like hear half of the songs, but it's just because there's so many songs. But this year they put Lauren and I in like the same group. We didn't write any songs together like in our subdivided groups, but at least we got to hear each other's songs, and it just kind of support each other in that way. So that was really fun that we got to do.
I've watched a couple movies this week that touched on songwriting.
Oh, really?
Kind of random, but we could talk about that later. I can share. Yeah.
Love to. Maybe that'll just be a separate episode, songwriting. Okay. Love to talk about that. We'll bring Lauren in and somebody else.
We did that already. We do it again.
We'll always do it. I'm biased. I love always. So I don't know. I don't think there's any like question of the day today, but just to be able to.
Thanks for taking time to share. I see you brought our outburst cards in. Did you want to squeeze around in?
I'm always down to
for a round of outburst.
And listeners, as much as you are confused, or maybe you don't like that we play a game just about every episode, a quick round of a game that we kind of made up. It gives Dan and I a lot of joy, just because playing an outdated game from the 80s. And
I think this might be one of the most divisive things about our show. I bet there are listeners who turn off after outbursts. Like they came for the first 15 minutes.
They came for us to talk about Sabbath and rest, and we're
I think some people like just listen to the outburst part and they're like, that's it. That I needed something to pick me up for the day. And there's other people who are like, this is the worst. I scrubbed 30 minutes into the episode so that I can hopefully get past the shenanigans. So comment below.
Or not. I don't.
Or not. Yeah. I don't need any more comments in my life. Please.
We're pretty tapped.
This shows my age perhaps and my temperament, but you know, all the YouTubers, and I realize they're like making gmoney and they're selling their souls.
Aren't we all? No,
aren't we all? But every time I hear comment below, I'm like, oh, I'm so done with comments in my liff. Like I don't need any more comments. No, I'm not monetizing the number of people who like or hate me,
let alone reading the
But to invite more people to comment on what you think about my life and choices. I'm done. Like I could go a year with no one commenting on my choices, and it might be the best year of my life.
If you are, I would say if you're listening to this episode, if you're hearing this, you obviously are. In this time and moment, I think it'd mean a lot to send Pastor Dan an email, a letter of encouragement, just a prayer, a something of just saying like, "Hey, you're awesome. Thank you for everything you're doing," and to him alone. That's listeners' homework. For
or
the
you
week.
could just itemize all my failings, and I'll put it in the list. All right. Do you want? I'm going to pick one. Are you ready?
All right. Outburst is a game of verbal explosions. It's like Family Feud. If you're just listening for the very first time and you have no idea what's going on, there'll be about a 1-minute timer. Huge shout out to I think Tim Wiseman, who actually put an average. He timed the timer 20 times, and the average is, what is it?
58.44 seconds.
Yeah, so this timer is 58.44 seconds long. And we try to get 10 of the kind of related answers. It'd be like states, like Wisconsin, California, Washington, and you want to name the top 10 out of the surveys. That's a quick explanation.
So
there we go.
I'm going to read the category. I'm going to read it again. Flip the timer. We'll have 58.44 seconds. If you are driving, pull over. This is where you need to get a voice memo out, or pen and paper, legal pad if you have it, and write down, or in the spirit of the game, a verbal outburst, a verbal explosion. Shout them out and play as a family, play as a friend. See which ones you get that we don't, and vice versa. And may the best pair win.
Amen.
All right, our category today: things needed for a trip.
I love it.
Things needed for a trip. Go.
All right. Water,
Map.
snacks,
Compass. Snacks. Spare tire.
sleeping bag,
Yeah. I'm going to say a jack for your spare tire.
clothes,
Petty cash.
gas. I don't know if those, cash.
Traveler's checks. I'm trying to think in the 80s here.
Yeah. What else was Atlas?
Yeah, Atlas. That's good for like a map. I'm going to say windshield wiper fluid.
Oh yeah, dry wiper fluid.
Extra oil.
Ooh, oil. I like it. Pillow.
Okay.
Hand warmer. Why not?
Blankets. Emergency blankets. That's what my mom would have for sure.
Yes.
Emergency blankets.
Oh man, what else?
Book. Word find, like a little activity book.
Yeah, pen, pencil.
Things needed for trip.
Binoculars.
Reservations. Printed reservations.
Oh yeah.
And time.
Oh man.
All right.
I feel like there's some obvious ones.
Okay, things
forgot.
needed for a trip. Shane, how many do you think we got of the 10? Top 10 answers on the board.
I'm gonna say 4. And
Oh, come on. You're
yeah.
such a downer. We got 7.
It's gonna be like
We got-
canteen.
No. We said water. It's close.
What are dumb things from the 80s?
I'm
Your
calling-
leg warmers.
Leg warmers. I called 7.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Let's see what we do.
See which ones at home, dear listener, you got that we didn't. Maybe it seems obvious to you, or maybe you're thinking to yourselves, this might be their first sweep. Maybe we got them all.
If only.
You don't.
I don't know. I have no hope.
You
All
said
right.
4. Okay.
Survey says
Jeez.
I-
Luggage.
luggage.
I don't think we said luggage.
We could have said bag. I feel like it was doable.
We didn't
just,
say it.
We just didn't.
All right,
No.
number 2, money. I said that.
said petty cash.
That's petty cash. That
Yep.
counts as money.
Yep.
Number 3, clothes.
I said clothes.
Okay, so we got money and clothes. Number 4, toiletries. I was
didn't.
thinking car trip. I wasn't thinking just stuff when you travel.
Yeah, we didn't.
Okay, we didn't get toiletries. Hair dryer. No.
Seen Spaceballs?
Yes. Not officially for the podcast.
Not for the podcast.
But I could quote most of that movie.
Do you need this leaf blower of a hair dryer?
Oh, okay. Number 4, a travel iron. Travel iron. Not just an iron, a travel iron.
Comment below if you
Yeah.
know what a travel iron is, because I don't.
If you ever traveled with your own iron, wow.
Travel iron?
I haven't used an iron in a decade, let alone traveled with one.
I need to
iron.
know how this was like. Was it like wrinkled clothes that big of a deal?
I bet you got to check that.
I see no one cares about wrinkled clothes anymore, and it is an incredible world.
You think you could bring an iron in your carry-on bag on a flight?
I would hate myself.
What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? TSA, would they let you?
A portable
Like
iron?
an iron, like with a metal spiky bottom, would they let you bring it on? I bet not.
I don't think so.
That's awesome.
It looks violent.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of movies where that's somebody's demise.
yeah.
Somebody gets fed up and they have an iron nearby.
Zombie
Problem
movies.
solved.
Yeah.
All right, number 7, tickets.
Tickets.
I said,
Is it that bad? I'm so far removed from like.
I said, what did I say? Your travel. I had reservations.
You
I
said
said reservations.
reservations.
Does that count as tickets? They probably mean like plane tickets.
Yeah, but that is the reservation.
Yeah, I was thinking hotel reservations. I
What's
don't know.
the difference?
What? One's at a hotel.
Your
one's at
ticket
plane.
for
All
a hotel.
Number
I don't know.
8, plans.
Plan.
Like itinerary, maybe plans. Make sure you bring if you're going on a trip, make sure you bring your plans.
Susie, did you grab the plans? No.
The plans. We forgot the plans. They're on the counter. I can picture it right now. They're next to the tickets. All right. Number 9, a map. We got map.
Oh, yeah. We're cooking.
Ooh, number 10, hotel reservations.
Okay. So those are very different.
Shane, we got 4. You nailed it. Congratulations.
My pessimism, what's the word?
Yeah.
My
Specificity.
pessimism.
No, pessimism.
My pessimism is on point.
Luggage, money, clothes, toiletries, hair dryer, a travel iron, tickets, plans, a map, and hotel reservations. Those are the top 10 things needed for a trip.
If you said travel iron, if anybody listening
man.
at home said travel iron,
Yeah, you can have this piece of paper. You can frame it.
We will send you this piece of paper.
Travel iron. All right, Shane, that was good. Thank you. That was medicine for my soul.
Speaking of medicine for your soul.
We're beginning a series. We're continuing a series. Last time we began on rest, on Sabbath, what it means to rest, to be people who need rest. Shane and I each have in our hands this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's a bright, would you call that orange?
I call that orange.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bright orange or red, depending on how many colors you can recognize. Bright red book written by John Mark Comer. He was a pastor of some sort in Portland, has since moved to Los Angeles, I believe. We are not doing a book review. We are not doing a book study. Shane and I are a couple people who are interested in talking about rest and figuring out what that means. And this book was recommended to us by a lot of people, and we thought, hey, this could be a good conversation partner. We don't have all the answers. We'd like to hear what this person has to say. There are going to be things we agree with. There are things that disagree with, that challenge us, that confuse us. We are not pretending to represent Mr. or Pastor Comer accurately. We're not trying to summarize his book or give a synopsis. We're just saying, hey, here's a resource that might give us some prompts. And so we're gonna talk through the first section of this book. Kind of diagnoses why hurry might not be good for us, and sort of setting up our need for rest. So rather than jumping in with, hey, here's how you rest more, I think he's writing to an audience that says, maybe I don't need to rest. I mean, sure, I'm busy, maybe I'm a little bit tired, but like this is okay, or this is sustainable, or we're all busy, we're all tired. He's kind of stopping and saying, maybe this isn't actually good or okay.
Yeah.
So, what stood out to you, Shane? Any quotes or moments or ideas that you found either like spoke to you or spoke for you or you disagreed with?
I really like. I think it spoke so clearly to me, and like the name of the book is in the title, and like it covers that pretty early on, like in that it's the ruthless elimination of hurry, and that this is something in our lives that one isn't just the idea of hurry is just who was it?
He quotes this guy named Dallas Willard.
That's what it was. Dallas Willard. Like he was just this pastor, John Comer, was just getting off his chest, like feels like one thing after the other, like being pulled in so many different directions. And just other stuff we'll talk about. But Dallas Willard, just this beautiful, beautiful quote. I think that just.
Yeah, you want to read that for us?
Yeah, feels like just could talk about it forever, and we just might. So Dallas Willard said, "There is nothing." Oh wait, well, I should start with the question.
You're good. No, it's good. He's trying to figure out what he needs in his life and how to have the spiritual life.
What do I need to do to become the me I want to be? Because I think we all feel that, like this constant stress, anxiety, pull,
like unfulfilled,
one thing after the next,
like dissatisfied, kind of frazzled.
Yeah, constant satisfied, constant fatigue, constant, unsatisfaction.
Like, so his first answer, he says, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, so then what, or what else? And that's where your quote starts, right?
Yeah. And like, what else? It's like, Dallas says, there's nothing else. Hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day. You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry in your life. And I've been chewing on that for a long time. There is an irony to when I was reading this. I started this read like on the plane.
Okay.
And I feel like there is no other place, like there's no like I think worse like imagery of hurry than airports, because everybody is literally on the clock, got to be there at this time, and it's always the most stressful thing flying because I'm gonna miss my flight. It is always hurry at the airport, like, and that's and there's I think more that John Comer gets into the book of like what are certain things and like why are we hurrying and stuff, but just reading it on the plane and like trying to get from one thing to the next, especially in California. All right, this is our schedule. Here's this. I'm just like, there's just an irony of when I'm reading this, and like it's like I was saying, my low is just like flights canceled, hurrying to get back before Sunday morning, and like so like what I want to just continue to like dive in this and like I feel that like I was constantly feeling this quote the whole week, and like since I started reading this, like there like you need to ruthlessly eliminate hurry in your life, and what else? There is nothing else. Like if you want to be who you want to be, like it's just that quote alone, hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day.
And I think that spiritual life is important, and we'll look at this a little bit more maybe today or next time, but the idea that, you know, maybe hurry might help parts of your life. You know, you might get more done in certain things, but if you happen to have a soul, like let's say, for example, like let's imagine you do. Like let's pretend
you have a soul.
Let's pretend you have a soul, and you know, maybe people listening to that's so obvious, or maybe some people are listening like, yeah, maybe we're just animals, and some of us have evolved better brains and language and tools, and maybe there's no such thing as the soul. But if you happen to have a soul, or you think you do, it may very well be the case that racing through life is not good for your soul. That's, I think, in some ways, kind of the premise of this book, that hurry is the enemy, the great enemy of spiritual life in our day.
Yeah.
And so a couple pages later, he's asking this church consultant, they're kind of revisioning their church and asking like, all right, what are the challenges we're going to face? And this is specifically about a church. But he said, you know, the number one problem you will face is time. People are just too busy to live emotionally healthy and spiritually rich and vibrant lives. And that startled me because I think it's true.
Yes.
Like
yes.
The biggest obstacle to a spiritual life, to be an emotionally healthy life, to a vibrant life, is I don't have time for that. Which is then like, oh no, like what am I making time for if it's not to live an emotionally, spiritually, and vibrant life? Like what could possibly matter more than that? Yeah. And if I'm too busy for those things, what am I chasing after?
Yeah. But like, and I, it also talked about, John Comer just also talked about like what are you giving? What are you giving attention to? And he just talked about, well, the things that you are giving attention to, like that's who and what you become.
Yeah.
And so if we have so many things that are pulling at our attention, we live in a very ad heavy like world. A lot of things are demanding for our attention. Heck, we live with phones. Like they are constant sources of attention in our world. Like, and I think that's also just like a point maybe down the line or maybe connected to this, but just there's just so much demanding our attention, our time, and that's time we need.
Yeah. So his goal is to get us to slow down, and I'm recognizing myself an unsustainable pace of life, and he's kind of naming not just the fact that, this might not feel good, or it's maybe the problem is more than I'm just tired or kind of frazzled because I'm trying to do too much. Maybe rushing through life is actually costing me life. Like I'm missing what it's actually all about right now because I'm going so fast. There's another quote, page 23, if you have the book at the top. But he says, love is painfully time consuming. And like it takes time to love someone and to be loved. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier with my running thing, where this guy, Daryl, he worked for like 2 or 3 days straight at this state championship track meet. He went home and like slept for a couple hours and then left his warm bed after these long days to meet me at this trail at 1 a.m. And he was prepared to be out there until 6 a.m. with me.
Oh my goodness.
And like, I was at my absolute worst. And this guy came out just to like encourage me and support me, and ended up serving me in most beautiful ways. That took so much out of his weekend. Like just like that moment of love to get there, but all the time it took to have a friend like that. Like there's people I could have called. Like I could have called, honestly, I bet 50 people at this church, if I asked them to be out there, they would have been out there. But how many people would volunteer to be out there and say, I'm there. Tell me when you need me. Tell me what I can do.
Yeah.
And like, I knew that I could say yes and I could share my needs, because it wasn't pity, or it wasn't like, oh, this is the loving thing I'm supposed to do. Like, he wanted to be there because he's my friend and he cares about me.
Yeah. And that relationship you have, like that nurturement of a mutual love toward one another. Like it's taken time, and it, like that love, that relationship, it is time consuming. And I also just say, like, in the theme of hurry, I love, he also said, like, hurriness and love, it's like oil and water. Like these two things don't mix with one another. Yeah. Like if you want a relationships that matter, like it is just these like subdued, non-hurried. It's almost like speed, like I don't know, like speed dating. Like how much are you actually like really gonna get to know someone in a deep, meaningful way? Like when there's a clock ticking, like I don't know if you've ever been in like a deep conversation when you know you've got to be somewhere and you're just constantly looking at a clock. Like that's the word. I feel bad. I'm like, man, I really want to listen and be invested in what you're saying, but I've got this like car appointment in 30 minutes and I just can't focus.
Yeah.
Like, or actually like be in this conversation, because my attention, my like what's more important to me right now is this.
So one of the things I regularly do, seemingly out of necessity, but you saying that is really convicting, is I'll often set alarms before a conversation because I have to be somewhere else. So I'll go visit somebody at the hospital or in a care facility, and I know they can talk and talk and talk, but I need to leave by 3:00 in order to get to this other thing. So I'll set an alarm on my phone for 2:50 so that in the middle of whatever they're sharing, I decided an hour ago it needs to stop now.
Yeah.
Because I got somewhere else to be.
Yeah,
and there's a truth in that of, you know, we there are things to do, and yet there's a tremendous cost in that too.
In just trying to, and that's weird, and just like trying to juggle like with. I'm like, okay, so like if hurry is the great enemy of today's age, just be there earlier. Like, don't hurry. Like, but I think there's so much more to it than that. I think like this hurriness just gets into the core of like what's important, like in our lives. Like, so what were you saying? I thought
no, I was confessing that I often need to schedule an end to a conversation even before it starts.
Yeah, it makes me think of like, so is that the thing that you're scheduling more important than this conversation, or does that conversation matter? Or is it that our priorities are all messed up? Or like, what really matters?
Yeah, I think that final question, what really matters, and a recognition for me that I'm often trying to do a lot of good things, and I could always add one more good thing. Mm-hmm. And if seeing 5 people on a day is good, wouldn't 6 be better? And if I can visit with 6, homebound members on a day, wouldn't 7 be better? And if 7's good, certainly 10 would be awesome.
Yeah.
And like that, all right, if I could go see these 10 people, surely I could go see Grandma Schmidt too. I mean, what would 11 be if I can see 10?
Yeah.
And at some point, there's this gradient of like, oh, maybe that's not actually healthy for me, for them. At some point, am I even loving them?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I guess my takeaway from this chapter, a lot of it was that's often unexamined in my life, or there's just there's an assumption that more is better, and in order to do more, I have to schedule more, I have to have less margin, I have to go faster. So here's a confession today. So I got plenty to confess, Shane.
All right.
And again, this isn't a bad thing or anybody's fault today. We had a staff lunch today. There was nice people who brought us Chick-fil-A. Not sponsoring the episode, but if you want to, let me know. And so the staff meeting went a little bit long, and I was late to volunteering over at Mirror Lake Elementary School. Mm-hmm. So I was the first person out of our staff meeting, which I don't like to be. Mm-hmm. I ran across the building to my office. I grabbed my jacket, and then I ran to Mirror Lake. And halfway there, I realized this is the first time I've run since my race last weekend. And it's because I'm late.
Yeah.
I'm literally running past the volunteer in the office, through the rain in the parking lot, and just squeezing one more thing, because obviously I got to be a good leader for the staff, and it's so good to help these kids learn how to read and do math, and I can squeeze in one more thing. And I'm literally running between buildings. Like, maybe that's not good for my soul.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us subliminally feel that. I think going back to the spirit of hurry, hurrying to it. I don't know if I've ever been in a God-pleasing mood when I am hurried. When I am hurrying.
Yeah.
I think of it when I'm if you're late to anything, it is so hard to feel the peace of God and to feel the joy of this earth when you are late to something. It is just the worst. I'm always in the most dismissive, the most hurtful towards others mood of anything. When I'm leaving and Lauren's taking a little longer to get ready, I'm always just in this snappy mood of whatever, it's fine. We're just gonna be late. Being on time is more important to me than my marriage and relationship with Lauren. But why is that such a big deal?
Yeah.
Not only me, but I think I'd assume in other people's lives. This book very much is just getting in slow down. And so a point he brought up that you've brought up in this book that I want to discuss.
Yeah.
It's just he always brings up Jesus was walking everywhere. That you had some comments on that before. We don't literally need to walk everywhere, and I think yes, but I find that so relatable, and just emulating your life off Christ in that walking nature. And I think there's a point to it of there's a limit to it. If you're rushing, if you are sprinting to be somewhere because you're late, I don't think that bears good fruit.
Right.
But to just leisurely walk, take your time, as if this moment here and now in front of you is the most important thing.
Yeah, you're right. I've got so many scattered thoughts right now. Shane. This is great.
Shotgun.
No, just so slowing down.
Yeah.
is might be really valuable for us, and rushing might not be good for us. That's kind of what we're saying here.
Yeah.
And trying to look at this from a spiritual point of view, not even just like related to church, but just like your humanity as a human, like your very soul as a human, like to race through things might be thrilling at times, but it might not be sustainable. So another couple quotes in this book, and then I'll share a food reference if I can do that.
Food.
So he's quoting some writer, philosopher, but from a Christian point of view.
Yeah.
He says that we are distracting ourselves into spiritual oblivion.
Yeah.
It's the middle of page 26. But basically this idea that we're so full of things in our life that the spiritual oblivion, and that's why I was saying earlier, like, let's imagine we have a soul, because I don't think we reflect on that, at least not in our normal lives. I think we're like functional. I am often just like this functional animal just trying to get through the day and just being crank out productivity or whatever.
Yeah. Like I want to be the best human that I can be for this society, for this world that I'm living in. Like who doesn't want to be the best, like at what you do? Like,
yeah. So listen to what he says after we're distracting ourselves into spiritual oblivion. It is not that we have anything against God, depth and spirit. We would like these. It's just that we are habitually too preoccupied to have any of these show up on our radar screens. We are more busy than bad, more distracted than non-spiritual, and more interested in the movie theater, sports stadiums, and the shopping mall and the fantasy life they produce in us than we are in church. It says pathological busyness, distraction, and restlessness are major blocks today within our spiritual lives. So we're more busy than bad. Like as a church, the problem isn't just that our people are really, really wicked and that's their like distance from God is because they're so sinful. They're just too busy to care.
Yeah.
And so am I.
Yeah.
So here's my food image. During my run, I'm not going to talk about my run every single moment for the rest of the podcast, but I might because
forever.
I've got a lot of
rest
thoughts.
Of your life. Yeah. Hey, I ran 100 miles.
But there's a saying about ultramarathons that ultramarathons are really just an eating and drinking competition with a little money running mixed in. So like it's just who can get the most calories in, and like also you have to run a little bit, but it's mainly eating. So when you joined me, remember I was eating a breakfast burrito.
Yeah.
Right. So I like a good breakfast burrito, and I like making it and sitting down and enjoying it. This one I hardly remember the taste of because I was literally running. Somebody handed it to me, and I was shoving it in my face while running because I needed more calories. It was purely pragmatic. Like it was just functional. It was a source of calories.
Yes.
So
it could have been a gray blob of protein.
Yeah, great. So I was listening to a podcast this morning from some Harvard professor, I think he was, a non-Christian person. He's writing about ritual in life and how humans need ritual. And he said there are these studies that show if you perform like ritual related to your food, it tastes better. So for example, they're giving out chocolate samples.
Yeah.
They give random people chocolate. They eat the chocolate. What'd you think about the chocolate? And they score it. But other people, he'd say, all right, I want you to hold the chocolate. I want you to break it in half. Now set the left half down here, and the right half, I want you to hold it up high and like take a bite. And then I want you to wrap the rest of it carefully. And then this other one, I want you to unwrap it. And like just by slowing down and doing ritual, people scored that chocolate. It's the same chocolate, but it tasted better to those people who did something with it.
Yeah.
And so it reminds me, there's this other thing in this book where it talks about every spiritual, back a couple pages, like and every spiritual master, bottom of page 24, even outside the Jesus tradition and secular psychologists, mindfulness experts, they all say the same thing. If there's a secret to happiness, it's simple. Presence to the moment. The more present we are to now, the more joy we tap into. Mm-hmm. So like every guru, every psychologist, everyone's going to tell you if you're reliving the past and doom scrolling and predicting the future, you're not going to be nearly as happy as if you just like, this is the room I'm in. This is the chair I'm sitting in. I'm with Shane. This is the water I'm sipping on. Like the more now you can be, the happier you're going to be. And this ritual guy, by making up arbitrary actions of engagement with the chocolate, it tastes better than the people who just grabbed it and went by. And so I ran by with this breakfast burrito because it was just functional calories. But if I had eaten that same breakfast burrito and like had 10 minutes to sit down, and maybe not even like with the TV on, or, you know, while I'm folding laundry and also eating the breakfast burrito, like if I just had the burrito, it's going to taste better.
And
It's such a weird thing, but
it is. I think that the presence in the moment is it's gone. Like it feels so vacant, like in our like today's culture, especially I'd say especially in kind of this urban Seattle area. Like this is a tech guru capital of the world. Like there's a lot of business people here. There's a lot of people with very important jobs all over this area, and like we've got very full lives, scheduled busyness, and it's hard to be in the moment. Like we were talking about, like when like again, like I got to be here at this thing. Like I've got this thing. I can't be here because I've got this thing, and that's what I'm thinking about. And then when you're at that thing, I'm thinking about this next thing. It's like to give your absolute presence, like in a moment. Well, like what does that mean to you?
Yeah, even to ask, when is the last time you did that? Like, when's, maybe ask you, Shane, just like really for a second here, think about, is there a recent time when you were really like fully engaged? Not fully, you know, there's always stuff, but like, when's a recent time? I'm guessing when you were writing songs, you were there in the room. You probably weren't thinking about other stuff.
Yeah. And I will say, like, we've been talking about Sabbath and rest a lot, and it's kind of been at the forefront of my mind since a little Coeur d'Alene retreat a month or two ago, and just like being still in the silence, because I think that's when it's easiest to lose sight of being present in the moment. Because when I'm talking to you right now. Like I can give you my like attention, and I like
our phones are on airplane mode. At least mine is.
Well, I forgot mine, but I ignore it most of the time anyway. Okay. But like
I think that's a factor though.
It very is, because
we're not doing this.
If you have something that is programmed to get your attention, it's gonna get it. That's its job. That's its function. So if the phone rings, if a car horn honks outside, like things are going to distract you, things are going to grab your attention. But like talking with people, giving your attention, to be present in that moment, I like to be very intentional with that. Like when talking to people, and like in conversation, I think the greatest gift you can give to somebody is your attention, is your two listening ears. My goodness, I talk to a lot of people, not a lot of new people, a lot of people at bars, and a lot of people and it's just seeing how much it means to people when you were just asking them about like, what do you do? Where are you from? Like, it's like they've never heard these questions in their life. Like, oh, you like care? Like, and so like you asked like when was a recent moment?
Yeah,
I think it was very.
Think of one?
I think it was very daunting to me. Like recent moment, honestly, was when I was on the plane reading this book. I've got my AirPod Pros, listening to some music with the noise canceling, just getting everything. Like, I don't want to hear the roar of the engine and the baby behind me crying, and just
the worst.
Just the worst. And I'm reading this book just about like being present in the moment, and I'm like, I'm just the worst.
I am the worst.
And like here I am, like being stimulated in like 6 different ways. I got a bag of like nerd clusters in my lap. I'm eating, reading this book, listening to an album, noise canceling and all. Yeah. Being comfortable with the fan on too. Can't be like too like hot or too warm.
Negotiating the armrests.
Exactly. And I'm just like, it's daunting me, like, or it's hitting me in the moment. Like, man, like I got to a point in the book where like, I need to stop reading, put the noise canceling headphones away, listen to the the hum of the engine, the air passing by, and all the crying babies and other conversations happening around me, and just observing and being. And there was like a certain chapter and point.
How long do you think you did that?
Man, probably like 12 minutes.
Yeah,
like
I bet it was hard.
12.
I bet you felt like antsy after a couple minutes.
It was hard for a moment, but like I want boredom to be a trigger in that. I think I might have talked about this some point. I can turn to the page, but just like when you're bored, like use that as a reminder to pray and to talk to God. And I just like in that moment, I was just like, I'm going to pray for everybody on this plane. Like everyone who I don't know. There were some people on the plane that I did know coincidentally too. Like, and it just like was an incredible like moment from God that he was this, 2 graduates from Concordia Irvine were on the same plane.
Okay.
But only because our flight got canceled, we got moved to LA, and just like seeing them, like having some brief moment to catch up with them, but also just like gosh, these are all sons and daughters of our like of our God. Like like we were all created in God's image. Like I want to pray for these people. I'm not saying to like toot my own horn. No. I'm praying for these people on this plane while everyone else was on their phone. But like in that self-realization of that moment, I'm like, I'm trying to like stimulate my senses just to feel good and entertained on this plane ride. Like, meanwhile, I there's so many people on this plane like that whose lives are probably worse than me. Maybe they're great, but like I wanted to be present in that moment, even as ridiculous that was, even sandwiched in the middle seat of a plane flying from LA to Seattle, being present in that moment. Like, what would that look like if everybody on this plane was just present here and now? And so that was like kind of a recent of being present. Like I had to like intentionally tell myself to be.
Yeah. That's cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's good. Here's another question I've been kind of wrestling if I can.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is I'm asking of myself and kind of wondering aloud with you is if so we've been thinking about rest and Sabbath and slowing down for a couple weeks now. Shane and I are not experts. We are probably not even good role models in a lot of ways. I think for myself, I'm aware of something that's not good. And that feels like a win, the awareness. So as I'm kind of figuring out, all right, if it's the case that if I'm rushing through life, like if I have an unhealthy amount of hurry, and I think hurry and distraction are related, but it's kind of different. Like there's a certain sense that we're just not comfortable with quiet or silence.
It's hard. I think there's a lot of
I think it's related, but if I'm not comfortable with silence, that's the anxious, bored, fidgety sense. But also if I'm racing through life, like have you thought about why that is for you? So for me, some of the things I've been wrestling with is it's easy to blame the world or technology or culture, and I think there are real factors there that are working against my best interest.
Yeah.
And yet it's really easy to blame the world. And then the other extreme is it's really easy to justify, like to defend myself of, oh no, I'm a pastor. Of course I'm trying to preach and teach and serve with the youth gathering and serve the synod and serve the district and write and like I'm doing all these great things for the kingdom of God. So I only have 80 years on this planet. So I got to do like squeeze every carpe diem. I'm living like it's really easy to kind of justify. And I want my kids to be well-rounded, have all the experiences. So yeah, we have to do violin and piano and soccer and track because it's for the children. And like,
think of the children.
Like it sounds silly to say it. Like we don't say it that way, but it's easy to get into like, so how did I get to this spot where I'm just flying through it, and it's easy to blame the world and it's easy to justify it. But I think for me, a lot of and there are probably some internal motives that I need to work on more and uncover. But I think more and more my answer is like, how did I get here? It's sort of, I would say it was just unintentional. I don't think I have intentionally chosen to be busy.
Yeah.
Was it Socrates who said, the unexamined life isn't worth living? I think there's something about like, I haven't been living intentionally, and I feel almost like I could pretend to be a victim of like, oh, well, yeah, we're all caught in this thing, whatever it is. Like, I don't have to have email. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I could be an amazing pastor and husband and father and neighbor and not have email. It would be complicated. It would change my life. I don't have to, though. Like, there are all these things that feel like I don't need a smartphone.
Yeah.
Like, I could not have that. And I don't remember choosing, whatever damage this does to my life and financial cost, this is worth it. Like, that wasn't a real thoughtful choice I made. Yeah. But here I am. I pay for it every month financially. I pay for it seemingly every waking moment with my soul. And there are great benefits, but there's great costs. And I'm just sort of going along with the flow as if none of us have a choice.
I think kind of the way you're talking about, the way you're describing it, again, I don't have answers, and I'm
just talking about myself here, by the way.
And I want to play a victim too. Like, I really like certainly, like, I can help myself. Like these are problems I've brought onto myself. Yeah. Like, I control my own schedule. I control what's important in my life, and where I need to be, and like how I want to. I don't know, respect people's time and whatnot else. But I think like the next chapter in this like really digs into that, in that it's not like I don't think it's anyone's fault, and like we were born into a time and place such as this.
Yeah.
Like everyone around me like sets alarms. Everyone around me has got a similar schedule and circadian rhythm of the day, and everyone else kind of lives by the clock and, communicates through the phone. And
do you ever see Castaway with Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
There's a scene at the beginning when he's working for FedEx and he goes to like Russia or somewhere. He's like, tick tock, tick tock, we live and we die by the clock. Yeah. And it's like this amazing speech. And
and then he loses all sense of time living on an island. But like with that, like the next chapter of this, like a brief history of speed, just really digs into that. And like the stat from this book that just I keep coming back to day in and day out, like it's not like you could say like they're like the invention of the clock plays into like our sense of hurry, because now we've got something to like an expectation of like, well, there's the clock, be there before then. Before then, it's just like show up when you can. But it goes like a step further to say like, yeah, the invention of the light bulb is probably like the worst thing ever. And it's just so fascinating. And I've been like living and dwelling in that for long. Like before the light bulb was invented, people averaged 11 hours of sleep. Like I can't sleep I've tried like to.
Yeah, you probably should.
Only after pulling an all-nighter, I've slept for 11 hours. Like how is that possible? What does that mean? And I loved, the whole section of the light bulb. And like, what did people do before light? Like, you had candles and certainly had fire, but like when it was dark, you're like that.
You're done.
You're done.
Call it a day.
What do you do? You can't see anything. You know how unfunctional you are as a human? Like
you couldn't live in the Seattle area.
Certainly not. You'd get eaten by a bear or you'd fall down a hill.
Or just starve because you didn't work long enough.
Or
4 hours of daylight for half the year.
I mean, present day Seattle. I thought you meant like the year is 200 AD.
Well, no, yeah. So 200 AD, you're farming up here like, well, I'm going to call it a day. No, there's work to do. You can't work for 3 hours for half the year.
You can't. But it also it made me feel so much like better inside. Like when he talked about I have to remind myself. I like older generations really like to joke about well, back in my day, blah blah blah, like there weren't phones. Certainly, I was talking to conversations of Lauren and I have this conversation of when you wanted to go to a Chicago Bulls game in the Michael Jordan era, how did you get a ticket? You had to wait at the ticket booth at the arena. You didn't go on the internet.
Right.
You had to get the ticket there. And I was just like, reminding myself when we were talking about tickets, I was like, oh yeah, physical tickets were a thing. Everything's just on your phone. Like you scan it and like you go back far enough. Oh yeah. Before light was a thing. And like when they would talk about like, the monks back in the day would wake up at 3 a.m. to like, and say their prayers to God. Like, oh God, like that hurts me to think about. Like, I don't want to wake up at 3 a.m. Like, how did they do it? Like, well, because they went to bed at 6 p.m. because it was dark and your body just woke up.
Yeah, you were.
And that's what happened. Then you went back to bed. And I think there's to like, I don't want to answer your question of like,
I'm curious
like,
where you're at, just processing.
Do I feel like a victim? Is it my fault? Like,
or is there something in you that like, oh, this is kind of satisfying that desire in me? Just curious where you're at.
Yeah, like I think like reflecting on it, like I do feel like a victim in that like this is what I was born to, and I don't know any better. Like the same way I think so many other people don't either. Like we're just mindlessly stressed and fatigued all the time. Like what is wrong with the world? I think the problem is internally. Like we are experiencing the problem because of everything we're experiencing. Of just like we have this hurriness in life. Like again, I think like attention. What were you saying? Like there's a difference between hurriedness and distraction.
Probably related, but
I really do. But I think there's so many similarities. You can't, in some ways, have one without the other.
Yeah.
Because like if you're feeling hurried, you certainly will never feel the presence to be.
Yeah. One of the things he said several times in this opening chapter is basically like, no good comes from being rushed and hurried.
No,
like I'm not a good person. I'm irritable and grumpy and frustrated.
And there was a really amazing quote. Sorry,
you can look that up if you want. But I'm just reflecting on myself of why I feel this rush and hurriedness in my life, even though I'm not content with it. Like, why is that my way of being? And again, Shane and listeners, none of this is a commentary on society. I am not. Like, please hear me. I am not saying you people or those people. This is self speaking for self about self. So this might not relate to any of you. I'm just processing for me where I'm at. I think a lot of it is I have just been caught up in the flow and I haven't taken the time to think about what matters. Mm-hmm. And then to say, okay, so what matters? What's going to support that in my life? What do I have to say no to? Which, it's sometimes easy to say yes of what's important, but every yes is kind of like guarded by 1,000 no's.
Yeah.
And I think I haven't been clear enough of what matters. I haven't thought clearly enough about what it takes to live that fulfilled life. And then even if I have thought about those things, it's too easy to give in to something else and say yes to it because I see that other thing as a good thing. So maybe it's supposed to be a family day, but they invited me to this thing. And so I say yes to something that if I said no, it would have supported my value better. So knowing what makes my life worth living, and then having the resolve to have boundaries in place to say yes to that and no to other things. And so I'm still kind of exploring, is it because I want to please the other people that I'm saying yes? Is it because I trade the long-term good for the short-term good of whatever dangles in front of me? Is it because I'm trying to achieve too much? And so by saying yes to more things, I'm providing more opportunities, even though it's costing me this other thing.
Yeah.
So I think for me, at the root of it is this lack of examination or consistent awareness of what matters and what it takes for that to be a thing, and kind of a lack of willpower, or just recognizing I have mixed motives. So even though I know I want this thing, I want these other things too. And so I make the trade.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just kind of where I'm at with some of the, why am I living this life?
And I think like both me and Laura feel that same way of just like, certainly can't just keep saying yes to everything that we'll be there. We'll keep giving more and more of our time. And there's just this hecticness to it. But then it begs the other question of like can't say yes to everything. But I'm also reminded of like, maybe that's just like my sinfulness and lack of trust in God. Like all the scenarios I've thought about, like when I didn't say yes to it, like
what are you missing?
What am I missing? Or like I did miss it and it didn't go well. Like it would have been so much better if I was there. Or like because I wasn't there, this relationship is broken.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to spend some time thinking about things that we've missed and it's okay. Just to like acknowledge.
And I'd also like to, in the same vein, like things we missed.
And that's a grief.
And it wasn't good. Or like
I'm sad that I missed out on that.
Yeah. Well, because I think of one of my brothers had a really amazing theology teacher in high school, and remember my parents telling this teacher like, hey, like it's gonna mean so much to my brother, like your student, whatever. Like if you are just at his graduation party, like it really will like just mean so much to him if you are there. And like long story short, like graduation party, that teacher never showed up, and it's still like, still remember that. Like it's just this sad like ness to it. But like at the same like I don't agree or disagree with like that the teacher wasn't there, but like was there a right and wrong decision? Like because I think as people in ministry, like there's a lot of like good relational invitations we receive, whether that's dinner, whether that's just a celebration event, whether that's a moment to grieve with one another. Like there's so many, and like how do you juggle that?
And not have perception of like favorites or there's a lot of kind of social risk and danger to saying yes to some and no to others. Because like, so is it no to all or yes to all?
Or you some like yes to some, no to those people. Like no, like I don't know. I think a theme too we'll get from this book, and that they talk about like we are built with limitations. So like how do you navigate that?
Yeah. You were looking for a quote a minute ago. Did you find it?
I was. I love this quote from Corrie ten Boom.
Okay.
And it's just Corrie ten Boom once said, "If the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy." And I think that just offers some realness to it too. On like, I don't know, God tells us to be still, know that I'm God. Like, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, I will give you rest. Like, there's invitation and a command to it, and I think it's a disservice to God to not kind of obey in that way.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it's interesting. So in light of our spiritual well-being, if that's a thing, again, maybe you don't think you have an eternal soul and you're just an animal and reproducing and consuming, and okay. But if we have this human nature, like that's more than our biology. If we have this soul, might our rushing through life be harmful to that? And as opposed to, what if we slowed down and had more reflection and generosity and, space to love others in our lives. So if we're rushing constantly, I think that Ten Boom quote is like, who's winning? Like if you don't have time to be compassionate to your neighbor or to reflect on what matters in life, does that serve God's purposes more or the devil's more? Although there's also that old saying of like, idle hands are the devil's handiwork or whatever.
Yeah.
So, that's, I think that recognizes our sinful nature, and like we are going to find mischief sitting on our own.
Yeah.
But in our context, I think to slow down and be alone with your thoughts and be confronted by how am I choosing to spend my attention and time and money and hours. That might be really convicting and scary, but that might be also really good for your soul to have that honest moment.
I think there's an acknowledgement of it too, of just that like if your life is busy and full to the max, it's gonna be hard. Like if it's something you're not used to, like like if you tell someone who wants to go on a diet, like it's easy, do this. Like, well, it's one thing to say it and one thing to actually do it. Like, so to like just practice that stillness. Like, I think it's hard for me a lot of times, and like, like I think that there's great examples of it, and just like, I don't know, like, I'm not going to get graphic, but when you have to sit down and use the potty,
there you
like,
go.
It is impossible for me, and I say that word loosely, but like to not be on my phone,
yeah,
like to fill that time,
yeah,
that it's like, but I think there's other like good examples of that, like on a train at the subway, or like a train of a subway or a bus, or
I mentioned listening to a podcast this morning, but I've been very intentional for the most of this last week. I've had the radio off completely in my car most of my commutes. Not even music, not podcasts, just nothing. And that's been a really healthy kind of moment for me.
I think, yeah, just
I say again, listeners, I say these things not like look at me of like I am struggling and I'm trying to find my way, and here's some stuff I'm trying right now.
But like, yeah, there's so much to just like process already in like the first few pages of this book, and I think like this book does a really great. Again, it's not a book review, but like it has been incredible so far to read it. It just,
even the diagnosing part.
The diagnosing part alone is just like, I think there's so many worship songs as the worship director that are like, are you feeling broken? Are you feeling sad? Like come to Christ, come together, like do. Like there's a lot of songs like that, and like yes, like I think most people, like everyone is coming to church brokenhearted, weary, restless. But I think like in this book, like there's certain vocabulary that people just don't use in worship songs, and I hope we continue to expand that through hymns of praise. But this book is just so articulate in like defining them. I think that's what grabs me and like makes it so relatable. Like, are you tired? Are you restless? Yeah, but like, here's more detail about it. Like is the hurriness of life sucking your soul? Like, you put it like that. Like,
yeah.
And that's just kind of like a rough example of it, but like, there's so much I want to talk about from this, and I'm glad we're doing like a series of it, because like,
which I think speaks to our method, so to speak, and our goal are related here. That we want to slow down, we want to look at rest, we want to practice slowing down, we want to have maybe disciplines. I'll speak for myself. I want to have more discipline in my life and more conscious choices about what is going to be refreshing for me. Not just like vacation, which is great, but like, it's not like, okay, I'll be happy if I can just have Mai Tais on the beach, and as long, like, that's great, do that. But what about on a Tuesday afternoon or in the rhythm of this 7-day week? Like, what are the choices I can make? And so, as it relates to our exploration of this, we are choosing to. We don't have to solve this in one conversation, right? Like, we're gonna take our time. We're gonna, talk for an hour, and maybe 10 minutes are on highs and lows, and 30 minutes are on outburst, because that gives me joy, and that itself is this act of slowing down.
And even to say like we'll solve it at all.
No,
like we're as human as anyone else. Even John Comer writing this book, like these aren't just like, it's not the key to happiness and eternal life is if you read this book, but like that's real life, like processing through it, like without all the answers, with everything unclear.
Yeah, and I think so far this book for me has been a nice conversation partner, in the sense that he's saying things I understand. He's saying things that I resonate with. In maybe he's putting into words things I felt, and having that from somebody else kind of validates it for me. Of, oh, I'm not alone, or I'm not deficient or broken or inadequate because I feel like I can't keep up. Everybody else is keeping up. What's so fine? Like, what's my problem? Why can't I do it? I'm just not good enough. And it's really easy to play into that kind of, insecurities and self-doubt of, I just need to suck it up and work harder. But
that's the answer.
But to kind of say like the emperor's clothing, like, no, he's naked. Like whistleblower. This is not okay. Like, we weren't made for this. Not just in the sense of like, you'll be more productive if you rest, but by God's design, we weren't made to live this way. And it's not good for our souls. It's not good for our wives and our kids and our jobs. It's not good for society. And we don't have to just keep going faster. Like, we are allowed to slow down. So like, and just giving permission to say, oh yeah, I can make those choices in my life. Now, it might cost me certain things, but I might gain my soul. Which Jesus said something like that, right? Like, what good does it profit a man to gain the whole world and to lose his soul?
I think that's I think that summarizes everything.
Yeah, I mean, there are real gains to running hard, and there are real costs to stopping certain things.
To gaining so much in this world.
But but maybe there might be this. That's why I say, like, imagine if you had a soul. Oh, I'm supposed to believe that. I do believe that. Oh, do my choices reflect that? Is that where my life is? Ooh, I think I need to. Well, I don't have time to think about that today because I'm off for my next thing. Like, ooh, okay. Even that's pretty convicting. Like, all right, when do I find time to think about that? How do I know what matters and what's going to help that? Like, just the fact that I don't have time to think about that, I think that's pretty telling.
Yeah. And there's
slow and steady, Shane.
Slow and steady. I got to hurry to get all my talking points in. Hold on.
Did you prepare talking points?
No. I mean, I underlined some stuff. No.
Were there any quotes from this first section that you wanted to get to?
I don't think not that I didn't say. I think really one of my favorite is that the main point. You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. That alone, like, I think is telling. I really what was the secret to happiness is simple. It's presence in the moment. Just being in the moment, to give everything around you its attention, just to be in that presence. I think it's so foreign for me, and I want to be better at that practice.
Yeah.
To just be, and then also just like, I think there is a the devil. If the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. Like that quote.
Mission accomplished, by the way. And I'm sinning plenty, and I'm too busy to care.
Yeah. Because if you're not giving God the attention, you're not like I don't know. You're not. What are you giving that attention to? So those were a lot. Those were kind of the big quotes that just I had still chewing on. You could spend a whole lifetime on those alone. So
well, we're gonna keep reading. We're gonna keep talking. We're gonna keep practicing. So I don't know all that means for you and me and for the podcast, but I'm excited to have you, Shane, as a conversation partner in this, because it feels alien. I feel like a strange person thinking about these things. Almost like, are we allowed to think about this? Are we allowed to talk about this? Because nobody else is, and everyone else seems like they're coping okay. And so, like,
by the way, I don't think anyone looks like they're coping okay.
I don't know. Like, I don't. I guess what I mean is, I don't hear a lot of people saying, "Hey, I'm going to consciously make some choices in my life to like simplify and slow down because I'm not sure I'm caring for my soul." Like, they don't say it that way. Of course,
I don't think people say it that way, but I think just 9 times out of 10, every time I talk to people, like, how are you doing? How's
busy?
your soul? Yeah, it's just like, it's busy. Like, I'm tired. Like,
it's a real busy time.
It is, and like, that's been the majority. So like, that's what I say. Like, when I look like, I don't know, when I look at the sea of people, most people in life, like, I don't think most people are doing okay.
Yeah, I know how hard I can work to seem like I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
And so I want to acknowledge that it almost feels, how do I say it? I don't think I feel embarrassed by saying I feel too spread thin. What I feel like, and we'll talk about this in upcoming episodes perhaps, is I feel this preemptive, like if I make these changes, I almost feel guilty. Like, why should I get to slow down and enjoy this when everybody else is going so crazy? It almost feels like, why am I allowed to do this?
Yeah.
And so I feel alone in that sense of nobody else is I'm not in a lot of conversations where people are pursuing this as a value or like as a real possibility of like, we could, and not even I could just stop doing some of this stuff and like have a day off with my family. Like, am I allowed to do that? Like I feel guilty thinking about that.
Yeah.
And also it seems like a fairy tale. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, not in today's world. Like, you have to have a smartphone. You have to have email. And as a pastor, as a church worker, like, I have to be available. And I'm it feels like this guilty, like, am I allowed to even consider what if I didn't? Like, what if I wasn't so available? What if I didn't say yes to all these things? What if I just disconnected and slowed down and like, oh no, like, am I allowed? Like, it almost feels tempting. Mm-hmm. Like, it's all like it's sinful. Then I'm like, what if also God had commanded this? Like, then that, like, we'll talk about that more, but like right now where I'm at, it feels like I shouldn't be allowed to have these thoughts.
Mm-hmm. I will let people down. Like, the more I rest for myself.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know if you're going to let me down. Honestly, like, we'll talk about it more.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm at right now. I want this. The idea of rest seems like beautiful, but it almost feels like unattainable. And to make choices towards it almost feels like, oh, I should feel guilty if I do that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not. Maybe we'll make this little journey and maybe I go it solo. Great. Maybe somebody else comes along and says like, hey, can I get in on that? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
But I'm not doing this to make a cult or have followers. I don't care if anybody comes with me, but I think for my well-being, I need to make some progress in this.
Yeah. I definitely need to too, because the clock's going to keep on ticking. The obligations are never going to stop. And
yeah.
So
all right, we'll keep reading. We'll keep talking. If you want to pick up the book, great. If not, great. If you want to skip past Outburst, we still love you. If your friend or spouse or child stop listening after Outburst, that's great too. We just want to have some joy together.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for listening. We'll catch you guys later.
Adios, friends.
That's the end of the episode, but we want to continue the conversation. Continue the conversation by sharing this episode, subscribing, or leaving a review. Connect with us on Instagram at 2414 podcast. Connect with us through email at 2414@stlukes-church.com. Or best of all, keep the conversation going by inviting someone to process with you so that you can each walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. If you happen to be in the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington, stop by on a Sunday morning and say hi. 2414 is a podcast produced by St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Federal Way, Washington. To find more content, discover upcoming opportunities to connect in person, or to support the show, head on over to stlukes-church.com. Thanks for walking with us.